Okay, and at the stroke of 3 o'clock Eastern time, going live. Looks like there's somebody out there in the wings already. So I see there is somebody out there. If you could give us an audio check, that would be great. And this is the Linux Hour, where we chat, we talk about Linux, we talk about computers and software. Well, hello there. How are you doing today? Oh, okay. And Albert made it. Well, the person there with the name HVU that says CIA hello, tell us a little bit about yourself and how is the audio today? Oh, wow. There's 4 people here lined up already in the chat. Hey, the other 2 folks out there, come on in, put your name in the chat window, introduce yourself, say hello, and let's get this show going. Okay, we'll be here for about an hour. All right there, Albert. Well, the one that said CIA hello, where are you at? And do you have a question about Linux? What you want to talk about? Oh, okay. Well, now you tell me who you are, but before I didn't know what HVU JYYG meant. Okay. You can always change your name here on YouTube. I think you're allowed to change it twice in a 2-week period. So how are you doing there in Germany? Are you getting a good audio? Because sometimes audio seems to be a problem here. And that's why I'm going to switch internet providers soon, because the problem I have an internet provider is once it goes to their routers, and they've got a bad router somewhere between what's called the border, which is the rest of the internet, and that includes YouTube. Hello, Marks. So we were describing here what the idea of a border is. The border on an internet provider is the outside internet. They call it the border. And that's at the time where their equipment connects to the big pipes that are the rest of the internet. So somewhere along the way, my internet provider's got some bad equipment or a bad port on a router. And if I happen to get that router, I'll have a bad day with YouTube audio. So that's one reason why I'm switching soon here. I keep saying, here's the Brightspeed fiber right here on my desk. I keep saying every week I'm going to call them on Monday. Well, I'm going to call them on Monday, tomorrow. So good afternoon and good evening. So for those that have never been here before, what we do is we talk about the internet, we talk about Linux, we talk about computers, we talk about AI. We can talk about anything you all want to talk about except religion and politics. We let other people do that. There's plenty of clickbait on YouTube about politics. Well, I'm doing fine there, Albert. As you can see, I was just showing this. I keep getting these mail outs for fiber internet, okay? And these incredibly low prices, all right? But I already have a good deal with my cable. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and sign up for Brightspeed, and for a month I'll have both services at my house. Okay, and it'll give me a chance to do 4 YouTube Sundays and use the fiber connection, and then I can judge which one I want to keep. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, yeah, and Nix OS is your favorite. Well, most of us here use Linux Mint, and some other people use Debian server. And then we have a couple other folks that use Zorin. Oh, well, I know that, Marks. Come on, man. How long do you think that price is going to last? Yeah. Oh, I look at the long term. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pit these two companies against each other. I'll have both services in here for a month. And for those that don't know, I've got a small computer lab in the room next to me. So I can hook those computers up to one internet provider. I can hook the other one up in this room to the other internet provider, and I can run all these tests on the same hardware to determine which one is really the better quality. Because there's an exact copy of this computer in the other room for testing. I got an itch here. So it's a beautiful day here in Kingsport. The sun came out. So what is your favorite movie? You said you were watching your favorite movie, but you didn't tell me what it was. What is it? What is your favorite movie? Well, anyway, while I'm waiting for Albert to talk about his favorite movie, which I'd like to hear about, I'd like to bring up a topic. Back to the Future. Oh, that is really a cool movie. Okay, I'll remember that. So now there's several different ones. There's the original and then Back to the Future 2 or whatever. They made several different ones because that's what Universal Studios do. You know, they've made how many dinosaur movies now? Jurassic Park. They just keep making another one to pump their theme parks. Because when you go to Universal Studios theme parks, they've all got these Jurassic Park rides. Okay, the first one. Well, the first one is Back to the Future, but then they made sequels to it, and that's what Universal does. They do that more than any other studio, is get into the sequel thing. Hey, I see we had another person join us. Come on in. Put your name here in the chat window. Introduce yourself. Ask a question about Linux or a topic you'd like for us to chat about, and we can do just that. And while we're talking about personal stuff, movies like Jaws and things like that, okay, but you watched the movie like 6 or 7 times. Well, I've seen the movie Jaws probably 6 or 7 times. You know, that's in my collection over here in the home theater. And, you know, Jaws reminds me of something that I want to talk about. It's about low effort people in your life. And I'd like to introduce the parable of the shrimp trawler. You know, shrimp are very small and they're very lightweight. But when a shrimp trawler, when the net gets full, the drag is so much drag, the trawler can just hardly move forward. And that's what happens when you get a lot of low effort people in your life. And I'll give you an example of a low effort person. You see some people that have 5,000 and 10,000 friends on Facebook, and you're getting emails day and night. They're posting pictures. They were at the beach, their beach sandals. They were on vacation. All of these people, all of these 5,000 to 10,000 people doing all these things. And then you ask one person, okay, hey, I've got this great piece of film work. I'm a new artist. would you tell your other 10,000 friends about me? Dead silence. Not a thing. Another example. Somebody else wrote this 4-paragraph review in their blog about some obscure music group that only sold 10,000 records. I asked them to do a review on my website. It's like a telegram. Giorgio Moroder vibes. Period. Okay. So when your trawler starts to get bogged down, consider cutting some of those low effort people. Consider cutting them loose. Okay. So let's talk more about computing here. I just wanted to throw that in there because, see, this is going to be repeated on the replay. So other people who are not here today will get to see what was mentioned here. And I see we had a couple more people join us. It always seems to happen in pairs, and then people leave in pairs like electrons. So I see we had another couple people join. Please welcome and put your name here in the chat and introduce yourself. Ask a question or tell us where you're located. Yeah. And you know, in that movie Jaws, they're constantly throwing those buckets of chum over to attract the sharks. Constantly buckets of chum. Yeah. Okay, well, I see we had somebody else stop in. Come on, put your name here in the chat window, introduce yourself. Let's talk a little bit today about Linux. Okay, so Albert here is asking if anyone knows about Puppy OS. If anyone knows about Puppy OS. Does anybody here know about Puppy OS? I've never used it because I've never had a reason to use it. Puppy OS will run on a Pentium 3 with 256 megabytes of RAM. It's a very small footprint Linux. Hey, I see we had some other people stop in the chat here. Introduce yourself, put your name here in the chat window, tell us where you're located, a little bit about yourself, ask a question or two. Okay, so we did get a one person give an answer there. How about you, Marks? Have you had any experience with Puppy OS? Well, the big reason here, Marks, that I'm reluctant to change internet providers is because I've heard absolute horror stories about the new fiber company that is kind of like the Hotel California. Once you check in, you can't check out. Okay. The fiber company has overseas. Hey, hello there, Donald. Good afternoon. Great to have you with us here today. The fiber company has overseas technical support. Apparently, they don't speak the best English. And the experience has been here in this area that when people try to disconnect from Brightspeed, this company, with these incredibly low prices. Okay. When people try to disconnect from Brightspeed, they can't return their equipment, and Brightspeed charges for it. So it's like once you get hooked up, it's nearly impossible. They don't have a local store you can return their equipment to. Like here we have Spectrum. Spectrum has a store. You can just take your equipment and return it at the store. So that's the big problem there, Marks, with Brightspeed, is if you decide you don't want it, it's nearly impossible to get rid of it and get them to quit billing you. That's the problem. Okay. So we've got a full house here, about 5 people. Any other questions or comments, or how about topics for discussion? Hey, hello there, Toxic XY Gamer. Welcome. I haven't seen you here before. Great to have you with us there, Toxic XY Gamer. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a really cool avatar. Here's my avatar. My avatar is a runic symbol. Toxic. I can't type. Everybody knows. Everybody who knows me knows I can't type. Jeez. Yeah, so my avatar is a runic sign from over 1,000 years ago. Yeah, that's my avatar. But your avatar is beautiful. So how are you doing today there, Toxic XY Gamer? And do you have a question, or would you just like to make a comment? And by the way, Donald, welcome back. So Albert, the one that says, I love for Sankanar, I guess that's a game. Albert wants to know more about Arch. Somebody in a chat room mentioned that Albert should use Arch instead of Linux Mint. So he's intensely curious about it. His curiosity will not go away. Okay, so Toxic XY, hello, I'm considering migrate to Bassite, which is the perfect choice, by the way, if for gaming. All right, I've never used any Linux platform. My computer is about 5 years old. What graphics card do you have? I assume it's a GTX of some kind. Oh, you're going to be just fine. You're going to be just fine. Okay. I didn't know they made an RTX. I always assumed they had a GTX. RTX is good. You're going to be just fine. What you do, let me give you a clue when you're downloading Bassite. It's going to have a menu of about 10 questions. Okay. And so be sure that you choose that your graphics are NVIDIA. And also you want to choose this desktop. Okay. Because coming from Windows, this is going to be the easiest one for you. It's either going to be, you're going to see initials. Actually, I think by default it's going to come with KDE. Just look for the word KDE in Plasma, because I think it is going to ask you about your desktop. Yeah, that's going to be the easiest one for you to make your transition from Windows, is to use the KDE Plasma Desktop. Make sure you choose your NVIDIA drivers, and it's going to be a big one. It's going to be about 3.7 gigabyte ISO. So make sure you have at least a 16 gigabyte USB memory, 8 or 16, excuse me, 8 or 16, because I think the ISO itself is about 4.7. I've got Bazite on the other computer in the test station, but I have never installed it. The ISO is just sitting there on a tool called Ventoy. Ventoy allows you to store multiple ISOs on one USB flash. Yeah, see, we need to keep it clean. We need to keep it clean here and not recommend things for people who are not ready for them yet. And NixOS is definitely not for a new person who really hasn't even made the switch yet. Right. A+. You are on the right track. Jeez. Yeah, Toxic Gamer, you've done some research, and that's the thing is I always encourage people, do a little research about Linux. Don't just one afternoon just up and change your mind. Oh, I'm tired, or I'm going to wipe Windows off my computer. I'm not going to do a dual boot. I'm just going to blow it all away. I'm not going to back anything up. Yeah, Rufus is easier than Ventoy if you're on Windows. The problem is once you're not on Windows anymore, Ventoy is better, and you can download it when you're in the Windows environment. So if you're not going to do a dual boot, one of these is going to be your best friend to back up your data. You definitely want to back up your data. Always keep your data backed up, no matter what operating system you're on. That's a 4 terabyte one, by the way. That is 4 terabytes on that USB SSD drive. Right, and that's what I do there, Donald. I've got a 64 gigabyte Samsung USB with that with Ventoy on it. Because see, some of these ISOs are rather big. And I've got a Windows 10 ISO. That's about 5.5 gigabytes, almost 6. Just in case I want to install it for the heck of it. Hey, I see we have some other people. Come on in, introduce yourself. We got a great group starting here today. Okay. That's another thing too, is to have your data on a separate NVMe, because modern computers now will allow you to put 2 NVMe drives in there on the motherboard. And actually the workstations I have allow you to put 3. Hey, hello, Strawberry Kitten. How are you doing today? Give us the word there, Strawberry Kitten. So, Strawberry Kitten, where are you at, and what do you like to do with Linux? You like to play games? You like to do coding? You just like to browse the web? And that's the thing, is that Linux is great, because once you get on Linux and you get a browser with a with an ad blocker, your life on the World Wide Web is so much nicer. You do all of the above. Great. Are you on Discord? I'm big on Discord. Oh, you don't use social media? Well, YouTube is considered to be social media. Okay, so to answer your question, Toxic XY Gamer, the NVIDIA update management software will still work on Bazite. That's why I recommend you install the KDE or what's called the Plasma Desktop, because they will have the updater in there. Okay, and what internet browser should you use? Generally, Firefox is going to be included. The two browsers I'm recommending are Firefox and another one called Brave browser if you need a Chrome browser. Okay. Well, we lost Strawberry Kitten and all messages were retracted. I have no idea what that's all about. Okay. So would you all like to see my Discord real quick? Okay. Yeah, duck browser, but oh, I have no. What's that hockey T-shirt? That's a hockey jersey. Let me get out of the way. That is a very rare jersey. As a matter of fact, if you look on eBay today, you probably can't find one. It's beautiful. I have other ones too. What I do is I rotate those on the wall here. See, they're held, I hold them to the wall with these clips. You can see that clip there. Well, you can't see it because my fingers, see right there, you see those white clips? That's so I don't have to poke a hole in it. I hold those onto the wall. You can see the other clip there. I'm right. I just say, okay, right there. See that clip? Yeah, that's how I hold it. I stretch it out on the wall, so I don't have to poke a hole in it with a thumbtack. Okay, so I have different ones, and I just rotate them through. Right. Well, let's take a look here. And another good way you can find information is through Discord, especially if you're a gamer, because Toxic XY Gamer, there's lots of gamers in Discord. Lots. So let's just take a look real quick at Discord. For people who've never used it before. So here's a Linux Mint, Prism Launcher, which is for gaming, Debian, photography, sound design, experimental music, photography. If you have other hobbies that you enjoy, then there's a bunch of voice chats. That's for small YouTube channel folks. How about Pop OS, System 76, and Zorin? You know, somebody asked, I use Linux Mint, but I recommend Zorin for beginners. Okay, and there's Ableton Live. That's a music production software, and you can see that people really get into discussions here. And then yeah, so users help each other in some of these groups. In other groups, it's just a useless chatter. It just depends. But like when you're in here in Linux Mint, you've got several different support groups. And then you just got people chatting. And once you can get past some of the silly graphics, okay, all right, you can get down to business, get the knowledge that you need. Okay, and there's a Brave search versus DuckDuckGo. Okay. And Donald, you just mentioned DuckDuckGo, but I prefer to use Firefox. And then if I need a Chromium browser, then I switch over to Brave. Okay. I hope that was informative. Okay, I've never liked Discord from the first day. Well, Donald, it's not for everybody. I think Prism Launcher is some kind of gaming platform. All I know is that somebody invited me to join Prism, a friend who I've known on Internet Relay Chat since 2016. So that would be 9 years. I've known them for 9 years, and they invited me to join the Prism server, and I've been on there ever since. Okay. But I knew it was related to gaming. Right. Because the beauty about Discord is for some things you can get an answer in real time, just like right here. On a lot of these boards and other things like Reddit, you have to wait for people to answer. And the problem with Reddit is when you ask one question on Reddit, you're going to get 10 different answers, and you're not going to have no idea which one really works. Yeah. So Back to the Future is Albert's favorite movie. Well, Strawberry Kitten, if you're still out there, I think you're going to I think you'd like Discord. It's mainly oriented toward younger people. But the truth is, they're in the hobby groups. This is only the hobby groups now. The ones like music production, photography, and filmmaking is mainly middle-aged people and some older people. And what you've got in Linux is you have a lot of young people who are gamers. And then you have some older people who've been using Linux for a long time. Yeah, so in Discord, you have a lot of younger people and a few older people. You have nobody in between, and you don't have people in their 30s and 40s. Those people are all busy working their asses off in this bad economy that we've got, trying to buy their first home. Yeah, people in their 30s and 40s are busting their behind to make their 2-car payments, their insurance, and pay their rent and do everything else. I'm already there. Okay. So we've run through quite a few topics here. Yes, it does. Donald, it does. And that's why when young people ask me questions, I always try to steer people toward wise answers. You know, I was mentioning to somebody today in Discord, I said, well, you probably should take the Myers-Briggs personality index test and find out what kind of personality you have, because that's really going to help you in your career choice. So if you're undecided about a career, it's probably best to choose one that meshes well with your personality. See, I didn't do that. I didn't know that for 40 years. Okay. I discovered when I was not working anymore, when I was retired, what my personality index was. Well, that's a fine time to find out when you're not even working anymore, what kind of careers are best for you, right? Oh yeah, with that 3070, you're going to get good performance. And especially since you have two NVMEs, the I/O in Linux is so much better. Well, I guess you're just one of those shrimp in the net there. How about that? Somebody said they were a low effort person. I guess you're just a shrimp in the net, slowing down the trawler. But the I/O in Linux is so much better, and the file system is faster. Because see, Linux has undergone several different changes in their file system. Like we're on ext4, which is the common one. Okay, that's the most common. Linux file system. But see, with Linux, you can choose different file systems. See, with Windows, you only have two. You have FAT and NTFS, and that's it. Okay. But with Linux, you can actually choose your file system. But the Linux file system has evolved. The problem with Windows is it's using the same file system it was in the year 2020, which is NTFS. Okay. So for 25 years, it's been using that same NTFS. And you know, Microsoft was going to change the file system in Windows, but they decided not to. They have proposed several different times to change the file system to make it more advanced and modern, and they have refused to do so. Microsoft has. They were going to change it in Longhorn to an object-oriented file system in Longhorn. And then also they were, I think 3 or 4 years ago, they had a proposal. But because the Linux file system has evolved, it's faster. Yeah, the I/O, this thing called I/O, which is input output, is much faster. Okay, I see we've got 7 folks out there. Maybe somebody just joined. Welcome. And this is a friendly, non-judgmental place. You can put your question here in the window. We'll try to answer it today in live, real time. And if we can't answer it today, we'll have an answer for you next week. So come on in. The water is fine. We're talking here with somebody who's Interested in doing gaming under Linux? We're trying to answer some front-end questions. Okay, yes, Linux will read from FAT and NTFS, but Windows will not read from the Linux file system. Right. Yeah, Linux can read. Actually, Linux can even read this exFAT. That's another file system but Linux can read it and write it and generate it. Okay. Thank you there, Albert. Albert, would it be okay if I mentioned what country you were in? I know some people are sensitive, location sensitive. Would it be okay if I mentioned where you were? Okay. Well, Albert is way over in Europe. Yes, he is. Okay. All right. Albert is over in Hungary, if I pronounced it right. I haven't been in Europe for about 25 years. The last time I was in Europe, I was in Greece. And I want to go back to Europe and visit. I love Italy. I just love Italy. The Italian coast is just incredible along the Mediterranean, the Aegean Sea. I want to go back and see that again. Okay, welcome. I see we have a person with an A there. Anathema animus. He says 25 years for me too. Just Germany can be, you mean tough. Well, Germany's not what it used to be. When I visited Germany, I visited Germany 3 times. And it was after the fall of the Berlin Wall. East Berlin was still relatively poor, but you could walk from West Berlin to East Berlin. There was no wall left. But Europe has changed so much since I was last there. Yeah, I hear a lot of good things about Croatia. We had a gentleman here last week with us in the YouTube live who is in Croatia. Really nice person. I'm so bad at names, I can't remember who he is now. How could I do that? But he's a really nice person, and he's in Croatia. Marks, do you remember who that was? I'm trying to look here in Internet Relay Chat because he comes in. Respawn was here. Yeah, I never knew he was from Croatia. But let's say I've been in the Czech Republic, Luxembourg, France, Germany, Italy, Greece, Switzerland, Austria. But a lot of those places have changed now. You know, when I was in Europe, you didn't see all this spray paint everywhere and all of that stuff. Where I can't believe how Paris is just completely desecrated. There's spray paint and things everywhere on Paris is just a beautiful city with with all the limestone buildings and all the the buildings are just built so well there, all the carvings and everything. And all these people have come along with spray paint and just sprayed everything everywhere. Isn't that terrible? Okay, so now we're going to get back to operating systems. So I never made it to Prague, which I understand is a beautiful city, and I never made it to, obviously I haven't been to Budapest, but I did visit Regensburg, Germany is very beautiful because it's one of the few medieval towns that was not cities, that was not bombed by the Allies in World War II. A lot of these other cities were bombed to rubble, and the local citizens tried to put the buildings back together the best they could. An example is Nuremberg. Okay. But there were other places like Frankfurt where the old towns were never rebuilt. They were just so completely bombed. They were just heaps of rubble. But Nuremberg is one of the examples. And then they've done a very good job in, I'm trying to remember the other German town that was relentlessly firebombed by the British in East Germany. They've done a pretty good job of trying to rebuild their cultural buildings. I'm sure somebody here knows what the name of that town is. It's on a river. It's a city on a river in East Germany, which is now all of Germany, but it had priceless architecture and artifacts there. And no, not Hamburg. It's going to be over in the eastern side. Oh, how can I forget the name of it? But anyway, it was firebombed, nightly firebombings. And but they've tried to rebuild some of the old cities, old town, what they call it. Yeah. Dresden. That's it, Donald, Dresden. Yeah, ever since the reunification of Germany, there's been a tremendous amount of time and effort spent to rebuild old Dresden. Right. Yeah. Okay, so we've got some other folks in here. Maybe some people are lurking and haven't introduced themselves. Come on in, put your name in the chat, ask a question. We don't always have to talk about computers and Linux and operating systems. We can talk about travel. I tell you, we can talk about whatever you all want to talk about because it's your hour. Okay, so when you say, and how was everyone, you're talking about when I traveled, or you're asking everybody in here how they are? There might have been a slight language misinterpretation there. Okay. Well, Albert here is asking, how is everybody in the chat? So I think he wants everybody to comment and say how they're doing. And Marks, you've been very quiet today. Are you okay? And in case everybody did not hear the good news, I am off Eloquus. I've been on Eloquus now for over a year and 13 months for a heart condition. And the heart condition was successfully treated. And I was given the good news last week No more Eloquus. Yeah, because some people have to stay on that the rest of their life, and I did not look forward to doing that. Yeah, and that was some good news. I hope everybody had some good news this week. Yeah, no matter what your situation is, I hope everybody got some good news. Right. I'm so glad to be off the leash of Big Pharma. That was a big win for me personally. Okay, well, the other person there, an anathema animus, how are you doing? Well, I guess they just came in and left. You're doing pretty good. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I think this is your first time in here. Like, where are you located? What are your interests? Gaming, just browsing the web, coding. A lot of people get into Linux to do coding. Lots of people get into Linux just to do coding. Now, I used to do coding when I was younger. I first did assembly, then I did DBase 3, DBase, SQL, EasyTree, and but now I just do Bash, BASH scripting. I just take life it easier and just do Bash. You're in Michigan. Oh, okay. I'm sorry that I forgot about you. I chat with so many people. You know, I got a message here I got a recap from the folks at Discord. I have sent 33,000 messages on Discord. 33,000. And I haven't even been on Discord a full year. So, yeah, I chat with a lot of people around the world. My apologies for not remembering. So, how is your computer doing in Linux? Give us an update. Oh yeah, we haven't done that lately. Okay. Well, I thought Zorin was on a Debian base. You know, I'm okay. Zorin is on Ubuntu then. It's the other one that switched. Deepin used to be on Ubuntu, but then Deepin switched to Debian base. Okay. Right. Yes, it is. But most people don't realize that deepin is so beautiful, it's enchanting. Yeah. What they did is they wrote their own, I'm trying to think of it, screen manager. There's a big fight right now in Linux between X11 and Wayland. They decided to write their own. I think it's called Pine, like a pine tree. Yeah. They wrote their own screen manager. But my thought on the whole thing is I spend the whole day in Linux. I use Linux Mint as my daily driver. And the reason I use Linux Mint instead of Linux Mint Debian in addition is because of NVIDIA. Okay. I like the convenience of the driver manager because there are updates to NVIDIA, mainly security updates. Okay. And then, of course, my hardware just likes the Ubuntu kernel. Okay, so that's the reason. But for new users, I always recommend Linux Mint as the first, and also to try Zorin. Now, some people don't like Zorin, and that's okay. But I still think that Zorin is a good choice for a new user. Now, deepin is very interesting because it creates an immutable base. So the user can't go in and tinker with anything, and it keeps the data, the home and everything data separate. It's very interesting how deepin, the installation of deepin and how it works. And when you install deepin, it's going to ask you, do you want a newer kernel or an older one? And then you can switch, and deepin will let you change things. Yes, it is. And the beauty about deepin is if you have a dual boot with another operating system, you don't have to go in and fiddle with grub. They've got a little manager, a boot manager, and you can go in and just change things, and it will automatically propagate the change. You don't have to sit there at the terminal window and do sudo update grub, go in there and change the little lines in grub. Okay, change the default entries. It's got a cool little, I wish that more distros would learn a little bit about deepin and bring some of these changes over to the Linux desktop. Because the truth is, a new user doesn't even know what grub means. What the hell is that? Is that some dirt bug? Some creature that lives in the dirt? Okay. Wouldn't it be just easier if we just called it a boot manager? Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. You know what the weird thing about deepin is? It kind of almost mimics Windows with the recovery. It has a recovery partition. It's got the user data partition. It's got the operating system. Of course, it's got the boot partition. I think it has 5 partitions. Deepin does. Always yeah. Okay. Yeah. I can promise you this. There's nothing grand about grub, because grub is essentially one giant bash script. And what it does is it generates the boot parameters when you're booting your system. Okay. Well, see, I don't remember because I haven't used Windows since 2016. Now I have a laptop that has Windows 10 on it, and it's in airplane mode, so it won't try to update. Okay. I put it because, see, I was taking it to my therapist to play some videos. Okay, but when you're in therapy, every minute you're paying is $1 a minute. Okay, so I open up the laptop to show the therapist these videos. It's like it would try to start updating itself. So what I did is I put the Windows 10 laptop in airplane mode, so I use it, and never tries to update. The other thing is that I have to have one computer in the house that runs Windows 10, because I've got these keyboards, these electronic synthesizers in the other room, and one of them has to have Windows 10 to manage what's called the sound library. But here's the weird thing. The computer inside the synthesizer itself runs on Linux. But for whatever reason, this giant keyboard company called Korg, they decided that we were going to that they were going to write the software to manage what's inside the synthesizer. They were going to write that because it also has to run on the Mac. Yeah, it's what's also known as the Win Mac platform for people who are into the music thing. Yeah. Okay, so do we have any other questions? We're just passing the 1 hour mark here. I don't like to stretch things out very long. Oh yeah, Windows 11, never. I'm going to make an image of that laptop Windows 10 in case I ever decide to dual boot and it blows up on me. I'm going to make an image of that Windows 10 partition, because that's the end of the line. Well, right. A lot of music people either have a Mac or a Windows 10 laptop, and that was the reason why that software was written. Even though the computer inside the synthesizer is a Raspberry Pi in there to do what's called the housekeeping. It runs on Linux. And we can do another YouTube live from the SoundStudio sometime. Yeah, my voice will sound a lot better too on that studio microphone. This is just a cheap little Logitech microphone here. Yeah. Okay, do we have any other questions or comments? Yeah, anathema animus. If you have some time, just give Deep In a look. Actually, I've got a Heil microphone. It's in the radio room, a PR781 for the ham radio. Okay. Remember they made that gold line with the little switch on it? One of them was like Space Shuttle Audio for DX, and then you had the one for Ragchew, that little switch. But I've got a PR781 on a TS590 Sierra Golf. I get great audio reports. I got a great audio report this morning. So I've got a room that's half of the room is my radio room, because the reason that it's in the corner of the house so that the coaxial cables can reach. If I put it in another room, I'd have to buy longer cables for everything, for every antenna. Okay, thank you very much. Good night, my friend. Bye-bye, and thank you for stopping by. Good night, Albert. Yeah, you know, the Kenwood 2000, the TS2000 had great audio. That was a great sounding. The only problem with the 2000 is it had ceramic filters instead of crystal. That was a great radio. You know, that radio was in production for 20 years, the Kenwood TS2000. I wish I had bought one. Hello there, Darts. Welcome. Glad to have you join us here. That is this afternoon where I'm at. I don't know where it is where you are. I'm over here in the eastern part of the United States, so we start here at 3 o'clock Eastern time. That means 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time, EDT. I'm sorry to hear that. But you know what? ICOM is not a bad choice. I'll tell you that 7610 is a knockout radio. ICOM 7610. Okay, so there's the ham radio room, the radio room in the corner of the house, the radio room on the room on the other side of this wall is the sound studio. And in there I have an RE20, RE27ND, a couple of Shure SM57s, the usual stuff in the other room. So Darts, do you have any questions or any comments here this afternoon? I think you're new here. I didn't recognize the chat handle. You know, the interesting thing about the chat here on YouTube is you can never tell when somebody's coming or going. I think when they leave, you can't tell that they've left. So somebody can come in and be lurking for the full hour and never say a thing, and you don't know whether they're still there or not. I'm surprised Kenwood is still in the amateur radio business. I know they pulled out of the commercial business here in the United States. Kenwood's on life support, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so before we close this afternoon's live chat, hello, Ed. Yeah, we were just about to close it, and we got to talking about ham radio. Donald Plasek here, he's an amateur operator. And Edward is an amateur operator, and I'm an amateur operator. So how about that? So Ed, I promise as soon as I can, I'll listen to your live later today and send you an email about your audio. Or maybe we can talk about it tomorrow morning since you're net control tomorrow. Yeah, the audio is not the best because I'm just using the microphones that are in the webcam. Okay, well, you made it just in time because we're an hour and 10 minutes into it. I like to keep it to about an hour. So we're just about to close it down. Well, thank you for stopping by, Ed, and I'll catch you tomorrow morning on the Treasure Coasters. And for those who are interested, that's 7. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. That's 7153 kilohertz. Yeah. And we start taking check-ins at 7 o'clock. Early check-ins at 7. If I can type. 7 a.m. Eastern time. I'll get it one of these days. I never was a good typist. We'll talk about that another time. Okay, I think I got it. So anyway, I would like to go ahead at this time and say goodbye to everybody and let everybody say goodbye. See, we had just one other person pop in here just as we're getting ready to close it down for the day. It's an hour and 11 minutes. I'd like to keep it to about an hour, but if that last person who just slipped in wanted to ask a question or say hello, please put your name in the chat window and we can get to you there. Yeah, I hate to close it down when somebody just joined us. Well, we got sidetracked into amateur radio here and didn't get to talk much more about Linux or computers. But I've always said this is about what you all want to talk about, as long as we just don't get into religion and politics. All right there, friends and folks, we're going to go ahead and call it a day on the live because I promised we're not going to carry this thing. I think the longest one we've had is 2 hours, an hour and 57 minutes, and we're just not going to do the 2 and 3 hour thing. All right there, Ed, have a nice dinner. Have a good evening. So for everyone else from here in beautiful Kingsport, Tennessee, I'd like to go ahead and close the YouTube live and the stream. Hope everyone has enjoyed it. Hopefully we'll see you all next week or tomorrow morning or later on today in Discord. So again, from beautiful Kingsport, Tennessee, USA, I'd like to say goodbye, everybody, and going to go ahead and end the stream. Bye-bye.